East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
This is East Idaho Newsmakers with Nate Eaton.
Thanks for joining us this week here on East Idaho Newsmakers. Today we are talking with Burt Butler. He is recently announced his retirement for the past 25 years?
25 years.
25 years. You may have seen him at the courthouses in eastern Idaho. Exactly what was your position, Burt, and what have you been doing for the past 25 years?
Well, position is trial court administrator. 7th Judicial District is what's important because Bonneville County is where my office is, but 7th Judicial District is by far the biggest judicial district in the state of Idaho. It involves 10 counties. Goes all the way from Salmon to Chalice, over to St. Anthony, Driggs, down to Blackfoot, and over to Arco. So we've got the largest geographically judicial district. We're also the third most populated judicial district, so we have one of the higher caseloads. And we're a very diverse judicial district. So I got into trial court administrator 45 years ago. So I spent 20 years in trial courts before I got here. And for the last 25 years, it's a position that's been very fulfilling and rewarding because I've had strong leadership from my judges and from our county commissioners and elected clerks.
What does a trial court administrator do?
Well, in every state there's some different functions, but generally what most court administrators get involved with is with the caseloads, the judges' workloads, and making sure that we divide the workloads up in a fair way, equitable way, and that the cases get tried and moved along without delay.
So do you decide which judges see which cases?
Well, or a computer does. I mean, what we do is, one thing that's happened in the last 25 years is we've had, among our master judges, which are judges who handle most of the different types of cases, we've had more specialization. And with that specialization comes more expertise for those judges to move those cases along. A couple examples of that is in Bonneville County at one time, we had 6 different judges doing child protection cases, 6 different judges handling the domestic violence caseload. And we were able to have judges step up to the plate and handle those cases and develop an expertise there so that they handled them in Bonneville County in a more consistent way. And those are very important areas, child protection in those cases of abuse and neglect with children. And to have 6 different judges doing those versus 1, you end up with certain, not only efficiencies, but the judges being more effective in knowing what's best for those children.
And just so people are clear, magistrate, there's 2 different, do you call them court systems or court? There's magistrate and district.
Yeah, we're one, in Idaho we call it as one general court of justice, but the district judges and magistrate judges are both under that umbrella.
And magistrate court is misdemeanors, citations, anything that's not a felony, correct?
On the criminal side, correct. That's excellent summary.
And they also handle divorces, things like that, civil issues.
They handle civil cases under 10,000. They handle all the small claims. They do all the juvenile workload and the divorce workload and the child protection workload and the domestic violence workload, so that all those involve families. And so we've got judges who handle that whole umbrella. They handle the guardianship, conservatorship cases, which are getting more and more attention these days in terms of making sure those are monitored correctly and there's no abuse going on either with the elderly or the folks with disabilities. They also do the mental commitments. They also handle probate. I mean, they're the judges who handle a large volume of caseload and the family law issues.
And then the district judges handle felonies, anything over $10,000, a lot of the news type of stories that you might see covered.
Correct, on the criminal side, or medical malpractice cases, the personal injury cases, correct.
How many judges are in the 7th District?
When I started here, we had 17.
Total, district and magistrate.
Right, 13 magistrate and 4 district judges. Now we have 6 district judges, and we just got our 14th magistrate judge just October 1st of this year.
So 20 judges, around 20.
Thank you.
20, and when you started, you said there were
13 and 4, 17.
13. So over 25 years, you've gained about 7 judges.
Yeah, 50. We've gained over 50,000 people in this district. I know when we started, it was just over 200,000. Now we're approaching 260,000.
Who decides, oh, it's time for the 7th District to get a new judge? Is it based on population?
Well, that was a good issue because our judges, we have 40 hours of windshield time every week with our judges who have to travel. Every one of our 10 counties gets to have a judge. That means Butte County has a full-time judge. That means Custer County, Chalice has a full-time judge. That means Clark County, Du Bois has a full-time judge. And those judges don't have full-time work there. So what they have to do is they have to travel to where the workload is. And so with that 40 hours of windshield time, with the fact that we had judges and counties who were willing to start problem-solving courts, drug courts, mental health courts, we have 20 of those. What we found is our judges were stretching themselves pretty thin. And when you looked at judgeships, in which judicial districts would get a judgeship, they often just looked at the workload of just how many case filings there were and didn't take into account the 40 hours of windshield time or the fact that they were putting extra hours in on the 20 problem-solving courts. So about 5 to 10 years ago, as they started to look at judgeships, they started to understand that there are certain judicial districts like ours, or the 5th Judicial District, which has 8 counties, that there is a lot of other time that judges have to spend with problem-solving courts. If you go to certain parts of the western Idaho, they don't have 20 problem-solving courts. They may only have 7 or 8. So that's an additional workload that you had to measure along with the travel time. So once they did that, and Bonneville County only had 3 judges, so Bonneville County had 50% of the workload, but only 23% of the judge time was from Bonneville County. That's quite a gap there that doesn't exist. In Pocatello, they have 5 judges, even though they're smaller than we are. But they only have 6 counties, we have 10 counties. So to make up that difference, we had to bring those judges in with all the travel time, plus do the problem solving. Of course, so in summary, what happened is that they gave some weight to travel, gave some weight to the problem solving courts. And so when they look at all 7 judicial districts and look at the workload per judge, we were at the top finally. So we had the first magistrate judge added to our, we went from 13 to 14 judges. Bonneville went from 3 judges to 4 judges. First time in, I think, 28 years, despite the growth that we'd had. So
who holds the judges accountable?
Well, there's 2 factors that hold them accountable. One is the Idaho Supreme Court has taken a very proactive role in judicial performance evaluation. We're conducting them almost every month now. Every 3 years, a judge is being asked, people, the litigants, attorneys, the people who work around them are being asked to evaluate them. And the judges get those results and get feedback. So that's one form of accountability. The ultimate accountability is the electorate. All our judges are elected. Our master judges, in fact, we'll be selecting one at the end of this month. First month on the job, I got to watch a selection process of a judge up in Madison County. Judge Mark Rammel got selected. It was unusual for me because I'd worked in the judiciary in the Southeast where there were wide open elections. And some of those elections were getting pretty nasty. A lot of money was being spent. So when I got here and I saw how the master judge was selected, where they are in what's happening in Fremont County right now is an announcement goes out that there's a vacancy. Any attorney in Idaho can apply for that position. Doesn't matter where you live. And you get all the applications in, and then you get all the background information together, and then a magistrate commission meets in this state. And in this state, the magistrate commission that selects the magistrate judge is made up of all local people. In our district, we have 10 county commissioners that are on that. We have 3 mayors that are appointed by the governor. We have 2 lay people appointed by the governor. We have 2 attorneys appointed by the local bar. And we have an administrative judge and we have a magistrate judge sit on that panel. And they review the applicants. That's what they'll do up in St. Anthony on April 27th. And after those interviews, they will make a decision of who gets to be the next Fremont County judge to replace Judge Gil Gardner. That judge then, once selected, is going to be on 18 months probation. And that judge will get reviewed twice. We sent out a public notice. I think Judge Kent Gaucher from Clark County is going to be evaluated. His evaluations, attorneys haven't had a chance, courthouse personnel, law enforcement, probation, anybody, we ask for input. How's the judge doing?
So if they have a poor evaluation, are they booted out?
I have had to witness 2 judges being booted out in my time before they got their 18 months over with.
During their probation?
Yeah. Not real common, but it did happen twice.
You hear of, I watched a story a few days ago about a judge in another state far from here who was always coming to work late, 4 hours late, and people would be waiting, and she'd take long lunch breaks and go to the grocery store, and there's people waiting in her courtroom, and basically no one was monitoring her, and the news did a story, and then they decided to do something, but she was in one of those seats that it was hard to have her removed. Fortunately, I haven't heard about any stories like that here in eastern Idaho, but it's always curious, because who does hold the judges accountable? But like you said, it's the public when you go to the polls.
Yeah, so that magistrate, if they get past 18 months, then on the magistrate judge level, they're on the ballot for a yes or no vote. So as long as they get 50% plus 1, they're stay in their office. If the electorate decides that they get over 50% no votes, then this whole process that I just mentioned starts over again. Now we have the district judges that you mentioned that do all the felonies. In fact, I heard we had 3 contested elections 2 years ago, I think, where attorneys filed against them, and those were elections that the judges the people had to decide who they were going to put into those positions. I heard that the deadline passed, and I think all our 6 district judges this time, nobody's filed against them. So
interesting.
But that is again anybody on the district judge level who's an attorney. They have to live within the district, whereas a master judge, anybody can apply across the whole state or who's a licensed, but then they have to live. If they get selected, they have to live in that county. Our district judges run on, we have district judge residency in Blackfoot, 3 here in Idaho Falls, 1 in Rigby, and 1 in Rexburg.
Okay.
And then we work the schedule where they cover the 10 counties.
But from their home base.
Right.
All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. More with Burt after the break.
At the Bank of Commerce, we understand the hard work, determination, and sacrifice it takes to run a successful business. That's why we're here every step of the way to help make your dreams come true. The Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.
Thank you for joining us here today on East Idaho Newsmakers. We are talking with the 7th District Trial Court Administrator, and you've decided to hang it up after 25 years. What has been the biggest change in the court system, Burt, that you've seen over your career?
By far, the most dramatic change has been the role of our judges in our problem-solving courts. And that's expanded out how they handle all the different problems. I mean, it used to be judges, as I was reminded early on in my career, judges were appointed or elected to be judges to decide cases and to make decisions. They weren't expected to be social workers. They weren't expected to know all the things about mental health and addiction and domestic violence and family. All those expectations on our judges, it's evolved. It's dramatic change in what our judges are expected to accomplish and do. And this district really led the way with, when I mentioned we had 20 problem-solving courts. Those are all courts where the judge takes time every week to individually meet with these defendants to see if they can work out their issues of addiction or mental health or domestic violence or child abuse. So 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that was not the role of a judge. They often would get a report, a social history, and they would sentence the person. And they went to a jail or a prison, or they were put on probation. The role of a judge meeting with these individuals on a weekly basis is really a huge change in the role of the judge. And to get the programs, I mean, I didn't know, when I got in court administration, I learned a lot about case flow management and budgets, but the last 20 years has been a lot of what I'd call program development. How do we get these programs to work? How do we make sure we have the right treatment providers connected to, who know what substance abuse, what's the best evidence-based practice to use to make sure that if we're going to spend tax dollars on treatment, make sure that we're getting the best bang for the dollar. What works with mental health treatment? What's working with domestic violence? What works with juvenile justice and getting the families back together? These are things that judges now have a hands-on role in. So when you look at their education, I was looking at the master judge education that they have in early May. I mean, they're bringing in the national experts on incentives and sanctions, on what works as a sanction, what works as incentives. They're bringing on an expert on motivational interviewing. I mean, so, you know, judges' skill level is much different than it was when I started the profession.
Not just saying you're going to prison, you're going on probation. Would you say those programs are more effective than just hard time?
Well, you'll see at both the federal level and the state level, Idaho legislature has put significant dollars towards those programs. I heard that at the federal level, despite all the budget situations there, that they doubled the drug court money for that because of all the opiate issues and the drug issues. One of the things that does work are these drug courts where the accountability is daily, or you meet with the judge weekly, and there's a lot more supervision and accountability, and it works if you have the right kind of teamwork with treatment. So it's made treatment work better because treatment, in the old days, defendants were ordered to go to treatment. They didn't show up, and not much happened. Mm-hmm. Now, under this concept, if you don't show up for treatment, you're going to be looking at a sanction, and it's not going to be a month later. It's going to be the same week.
Right away.
So it's a whole paradigm shift in how the justice system is working.
Has media and social media interest in court cases changed over the years, or have people always kind of been interested in, you know, the true crime that's happening in their neighborhood, but now it's just more easy to find out about?
Well, you know, when I got started, my first job was in North Georgia, where Deliverance was filmed, and I had 17 counties up in the mountains. And those counties had just walked away from Saturday court. In the old days, court was they held it on Saturday, and people came and watched. And so, you know, that was the ultimate local issue. So now, also when I got here about 25 years ago, I got to serve on the camera in the courtroom committee. And it was really, the Supreme Court was going to let cameras in the courtroom. It was just under what rules and guidelines. So you've always had this interest in that courtroom drama and how can the media capture that. I think what I found here in Eastern Idaho is we're a training ground for reporters, and I think we probably had double or triple the exposure of our media, our local media covering the courts. I think that slowed down, and I think East Idaho News is kind of picking it back up again, because I think with the consolidation of the markets and everything, I think the courts were getting covered less and less, but I think you guys are starting to help change that, again, to help make sure what's happening in the court setting. Even if it is cases that aren't necessarily the typical case, you're still covering it and you're still giving the public some idea of what's happening
Well,
in their courthouses.
I've worked in other states where cameras are not allowed in the courtroom, period. And a reporter might be allowed in, but
Sure.
doing a television story, trying to get anything visually, you got to wait outside the courtroom doors, hoping that somebody walks out and chase them down with the microphone. So it is convenient as far as the media is concerned. Idaho laws has been, good for us letting those cameras in.
And I think the Idaho court's philosophy is it's an open court system, and you are helping make the courts more open. So we appreciate all the effort that the media does here in Eastern Idaho to provide the coverage.
What will you miss about your job?
Just the energy that our 10 counties provided, and moving what I talked about a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of the rest of the state. We really had, I don't know how many times I heard, well, we can't do that in other parts of the state. When Judge Brent Moss started the first mental health court here, and health and welfare, local health and welfare stepped up to the plate. It was like, well, you guys can't do that. You don't have the resources. And we used existing resources, and health and welfare stepped up to the plate and provided one of the first mental health courts in the country. And that got repeated time and again, where our counties and our both state and county personnel would step up to the plate and make something happen. I'll miss that energy, that synergy that occurred, and apparently doesn't occur in other parts of this state. So.
And what do you plan to do? Gonna go fishing?
I said I'd fish when I came here, and I did build a cabin on a good area to fish, but I still haven't put a pole in. I think I'm a person who enjoys adventures, and it's just amazing. I hope to do at least 3 or 4 adventures around the world that involve hiking or biking or floating a river, and I hope to add on to my vacation rental cabin so that I can stay there and come and go as I wish. So, looking forward to it.
Good for you. Well, what a career, and it's one that has changed at least the court systems, maybe in some ways, but in other ways nothing has changed, I'm sure. And we appreciate your service to our community, to the 7th District. If you're watching and you're in Eastern Idaho, you probably are in the 7th District, I guess, unless you're down in Pocatello and Blackfoot. That's the cutoff, right?
Blackfoot is part of us.
Blackfoot is in the 7th, okay.
Absolutely.
But Pocatello is the 6th, and anywhere
Yes,
south.
right. And then Twin Falls is the 5th.
The 5th, okay.
So.
Well, Burt Butler, nice talking with you. Thanks for joining us here on East Idaho Newsmakers, and thank you for watching. Have a good week.
East Idaho Newsmakers is brought to you by the Bank of Commerce, your bank of a lifetime.